All right. Another episode of the Cockpit Chronicles. What's up, guys? If you're traveling, if you're an RVer, I hope you're having a great day on the road. I'm headed north, essentially from West Yellowstone on the 191, past Big Sky, on up to Bozeman or Bos Angeles or Bozo Town. Got to stop at Walmart, pick up some prescriptions, and run a few errands, so I need a town. Been out for the last week, boondocking, and we're out of water. So that's the other thing. We're headed into Bozeman, actually a town west of Bozeman, about 10 minutes, to dump, fill, and reset. So as promised, I told you guys that I was gonna illustrate how I came to travel in this Newmar Dutch Star. I started researching the RV lifestyle 3 years before I left. So in 2020, I got interested in this. I started watching YouTube videos like the one you might be watching right now, getting motivated to get out and do your own thing, and doing my research to see if this lifestyle was feasible. And a big part of that, this is vehicle-based adventure. It's kind of like overlanding if you think of it, but an overlander is doing a 4x4 on dirt out in the backcountry. I am doing this on pavement, sometimes on dirt. Definitely, I definitely drive this thing on dirt once in a while. But I'm essentially overlanding, and I say that because, like in the last episode, you heard me say that I very rarely am plugged in. So I boondock almost exclusively, and I needed a vehicle that could support that. And I've been an off-roader for decades. I've been doing it since it was called car camping, far before overlanding even existed as a term. And I thought, man, I really like getting out into the backcountry and camping. Why don't I do that in a Sprinter van? So down in the valley in Phoenix, I started going to RV shows. And one of the first things that I looked at was Sprinter vans. I thought, oh, cool, it's lifted, it's got all-terrain tires, there's a winch, lights, a roof rack, solar. I can do what I want to do, travel the way I want to travel in this thing. And then I walked into it, and I couldn't stand up straight. So I thought, this costs at or over $200,000 new, and I can't even stand up in it. I think that would be fine for, and this is not to cast shade on you van lifers that might be watching this. I love the concept. I love the idea. I love the ability to park that thing in tight places, especially in light of the fact that I'm driving 65 feet long. But to not be able to stand up in my house is not a long-term plan. I could do it for a weekend for a bike race or something, or to go skiing, but just not going to work for full-time travel. So I got out of it. There wasn't enough storage for me either. I looked at a Class C, which is a little bit bigger. Google that shit, the different types of motorhomes, Class A, B, and C. I looked at a Class C, which is a little bit bigger. Still had really lightweight construction. The walls, the cabinetry, everything was built to be very lightweight, and it showed. The build quality was not there. Actually, here's a Class C coming right now. So you see that. That's a Class C motorhome. So that's what I was looking at. Tall enough for me to stand up in, yeah, but not enough storage capacity. They're not, most of them are not available in a diesel-powered platform, which is something that I wanted. So, and here comes a Class A, perfect example. Boom. Howdy, Class A RVer. They wave back. They're pulling a Jeep 4 down. I'll talk about towing in an upcoming episode, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, I looked at these Class Cs and even big Class Cs. And they just didn't have the storage capacity. And then questions came up about um, what am I going to do with laundry? Um, how long is the water going to last? Those things do not have a 105-gallon water supply, I assure you. So I was going to have to dump and fill probably multiple times a week, and it was inconvenient. Because when you talk about 52 weeks on the road a year, full time, you're looking at dumping and filling over 100 times, and that wasn't for me. So at that point, I got discouraged. I looked at travel trailers, I looked at bumper pulls, I looked at fifth wheels, and I realized I'm going to have to sell my Range Rover and buy a pickup to pull whatever I buy. And then the price went through the roof. And also the build quality in those trailers still wasn't there, wasn't what I was interested in living my life in. So at that point, yeah, I got pretty discouraged, and I thought this might not be for me. This isn't going to work. And then I walked in to a Tiffin Allegro bus, which is very similar to this. It's 45 feet long, full-size residential refrigerator, washer, dryer, tons of storage inside the rig, tons of storage in what's called the basement, in all of the storage doors along the sides. You've seen them in videos I've posted on my rig. So when I looked at this, it looked really doable. This looked really possible. So I started researching specifically Class 8 diesel pushers, and it's called a pusher because the diesel engine is in the back. In this rig, I've got a 450 horsepower Cummins ISL turbo 6-cylinder with 1,250 feet of torque, foot-pounds of torque, and it's in the back. So it's got essentially a commercial, like a tractor trailer power plant, which is incredibly serviceable. I do a lot of the service on this rig myself, but a key fact to the matter is that it's a Cummins engine on a Freightliner chassis, and I can go to a truck mechanic, I can go to a diesel mechanic and get work done on this thing, and diesel mechanics are all over the place. So that was another factor. Price clearly became a factor early on because I looked at what these things cost new, and it was not that was not going to be possible for me. I have only, let me think. I think I've only owned 2 new vehicles in my life, and they were leases when I was pretty young. First started in the fire department, had no money to make a car payment, and I needed something really reliable, so I leased a couple of vehicles for a few years. Since then, I've never had a new vehicle. But what I like to do is I buy a very high-end vehicle that's several, a few years old. And I've done that with a Range Rover. I've done that with a Porsche 911, and I did that with this Newmar Dutch Star. I found this. I established a relationship with a salesman at La Mesa RV, and I kept seeing him at their shows. So the first time I saw him, I said, "Nah, I'm just looking." And then after probably the 6th time that I ran into Rob, I finally told him what I was looking at doing, and he said, "All right, I'll start looking for you." So I did my own due diligence, and I looked around also. But Rob would eventually intermittently text me, "Hey, I've got something you might be interested in." I'd go look at it. Here's the key with picking a big Class A RV: you have to get the floor plan right. And I didn't see the floor plan that I wanted. I didn't see the color upholstery and the color cabinetry that I wanted. So I just kept looking and looking, and you're gonna, when you're shopping for one of these, you're probably gonna have to compromise on something. So I was not willing to compromise on the floor plan. The floor plan number of this is 4369. This is a Newmar Dutch Star 4369 floor plan. Now, the 4369 comes in a lot of different colors. The layout is the same. The floor plan is the same. As we descended down here through the Gallatin Valley, just past Big Sky a few minutes ago, we're going to keep dropping down as we get down into Bozeman, and we'll get out into almost some flat farmland down here, ranches. I was actually looking at, I had just test driven a private owner coach. It was an American coach that was several years old. It needed work, which I knew I could do, but it needed a lot of work. And just as I finished test driving this guy's rig, Rob texted me. He said he was at a show. He had a unit that I might be interested in. So I went and looked at it. I drove it, and that was Amelia. And here we are. So I'll take you through the purchase process next, in the next episode. But after I drove this rig, I knew, okay, this is the one. I want to pull the trigger on it. Let's see what we can do for pricing. And here we are, driving it through Montana a couple of years later. All right, guys, if you're on the road, stay safe. I'll talk to you in the next episode of the Cockpit Chronicles. Happy trails.